I love Mondays with Mike Heller.
Broadcasting live from an undisclosed bunker in the Badger State, this is I Love Mondays with Mike Heller. Powered by determination and a little bit of duct tape. Here's your host, Mike Heller.
So here we go. We get to do this again. I think we're going to get better every day. I don't know that I will, but Ben Bano has been getting better every day except for yesterday.
How did I screw up yesterday?
You did not. You did not. I'm just, listen, what? You're in a locker room. You can't take some of that. You're going to have to take some of that.
I told you before this is going to be a perfect show.
We don't talk about perfect shows
All right.
on this show. So we welcome you in. It's a Thursday, but it's an I Love Monday every day of the week on this program because that's what we do. And I'm going to say this a lot. A couple of things. There are a couple of notes I want to share with you about the show. Number one is that it is a Monday through Friday, hour-long sports life talk show. All right. It's called I Love Mondays, which I had to fight my own way through the process as to whether I wanted to call it that. And I was advised by some people who know more than me that maybe you shouldn't do that, but we did it. So here it is. It is I Love Mondays, but it is a Monday through Friday. And there'll be some special editions when we get to the time of year when that matters. But there'll be some special shows, obviously, as well. But it's Monday through Friday. It's an hour long. And this week, for those of you, if you're listening live or watching live on Twitter Live or on our YouTube channel, that we're live from 2 until 3 o'clock. Next Monday, a few days from now, we're going to move to 10 a.m. Again, smart people would advise you and say, what are you doing? You're going to move after your first week? Well, nobody said I was smart. But we are going to move to 10 o'clock for other commitments that I have, other opportunities, other things that I'm doing. And one of those is with Badger Connect, and I'll kind of explain why that's important because today was also a launch there. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let me tell you about our sponsors as we begin. This show, I Love Mondays, is presented by friends and sponsors. And the sponsorship is important in so many different ways. But let me begin by saying the sponsors aren't there just to fill some time and need and spend some money that they don't think is important, because it's all important. But I'm going to encourage you always to support our sponsors. So our presenting sponsor is M3 Insurance, among others. I mean, they are the lead, the first ones in for me, along with neuroscience, those two. So let me talk about M3, proud to serve the clients across the country with world-class expertise and individual attention tailored to your business, no compromises, no matter what. So if you own a business, part of a business, and manage insurance and other benefit factors, reach out to the folks at M3 Insurance. They know what they're doing. They're fantastic with what they do. So please reach out to M3. The other presenting sponsor is neuroscience. And in sports, you trust the right team. For your health, it's no different. Neuroscience Group brings together specialists in neurology, spine, and pain management, working together to get you back to full strength. Neurosciencegroup.com. And I appreciate Ben Siebert, who kind of set me up there. Friend of mine that I met, didn't know that I was going to meet him, but met him at Brewers Fantasy Camp and worked our way through. It's also brought to you in part as our partner sponsors with Havish, and Rotier. All of our injury updates, even mine, are brought to you by the attorneys at Havish, and Rotier. And this program is also presented in part by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. Bet above the rest. All right, so let's talk about where we are. There were two games last night that we kind of talked about during the show yesterday. The Bucks were a 1.5 favorite, I believe, at home against the Atlanta Hawks. But the Bucks have shown you right now in a 4-game stretch, and no 4-game stretch is indicative of what a year is like. I say that all the time when the Brewers will go through hey, they've lost 5 of 6 and people will freak out. You can lose. You can have those at any time. You just have to make up for them. The problem with the Bucks losing now 4 in a row, the first 3 were by 20 plus. Last night they lose by 18. The problem with what they're doing right now is that they don't have runway left with which to work. 21 games remaining and 5 games back of the final seed that gets a playoff spot, the 10th seed. They're the 11th seed and they're 5 games back. And who they lost to last night in the Atlanta Hawks is the team that they're chasing. They'll get them again, but there are 21 games left. You got to make up 5 over 21. And Atlanta's won 5 in a row, I think. That was their 5th straight win last night. For the Bucks, the 4th straight loss. Charlotte keeps winning, and you're also chasing them. But if you just keep your eye on Atlanta, last night the Bucks on the home court blew a golden opportunity and didn't look good in doing so. They played well out of the gate, well into halftime-ish, but then in the third quarter and fourth quarter, nothing there. No rally, just not enough. I hate doing this because I'm never sold that this is really the deal, but they played without heart. Athletes, they're the most competitive people on the planet, I think, and they didn't compete hard enough. It's a problem. Usually when you don't compete hard enough, the problem is in leadership and or coaching. I don't know that making a move now on Doc makes any sense with 21 games left, but the problem there is you'd be paying for 3 coaches that aren't coaching because they're still paying Bud, and then they're paying, who am I missing? Who is the guy in between that was there for about 2 cups of coffee?
Adrian
Griffin. They're paying him. So if they made a move on Doc, they'd be paying 3 coaches that aren't coaching. Money's not the issue, is it? So that is a problem, and the Bucks aren't doing anything. So that was super disappointing. And it comes off the Badgers last night in their senior night game at home against a pretty bad Maryland team. It was perfect. Exactly what you'd want to do. They didn't shoot well coming out of the gate, but they picked that up. Braden Carrington was great. Nick Boyd is fantastic. John Blackwell was good. There was one downside to the game. That's Nolan Winter, that ankle turn. They're not going to tell us a whole lot between now and Purdue on Saturday, but it sure would seem that Nolan Winter is a long shot to be able to play in West Lafayette. I'm going to guess at that just by the way he didn't put any weight on walking off the court. I think Greg Gard said post-game that they believe that they dodged a bullet on the severity, but maybe that just means you've got some runway to work with from getting him back on the court. They'll open at the Big Ten tournament next Thursday. Not in a position to get that double bye, so they will open on Thursday. They'd have to win 4 games to win the tournament. I don't know if Winter would be ready, but there's no sense in speculating on that for next week. But the guess would be Saturday's a long shot to play in West Lafayette. The Badgers in their current position, they are 21-9, 13-6 in the Big Ten, tied for 5th place with Purdue, who they play on Saturday. They lost to Purdue 89-73 at home back on January 3rd. It was still a team trying to figure out who they were. Weren't playing with confidence, weren't playing within their system very well at the time. They are now, and we'll see how that works. But then there was and we'll share it later on, but just the incredible uplifting moment at the end with Isaac Gard. But Wisconsin wins last night 78-45. By the time that was done, watched some of the celebration and then flipped over and watched the Bucks. The Bucks were in a good spot. But from that point on, they weren't. So that's messy right now. The Bucks are messy. I don't know how that answers itself. For me, that was the tune-out moment game last night for the Bucks on the season. 5 games out with 21 to play, and a team that you were chasing when you were 4 games out on your home court that is also not very good. And you couldn't hang with them. So I don't know what's there for the Bucks. I listened to Giannis postgame, and he sounds down. He goes last night, 26 minutes, 24 points, 5 rebounds. And I don't love this statistic, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Minus 24 in the plus minus. So when Giannis was on the court, even though he scored 24 points, He was minus 24 plus minus. I don't know how great my math is, but that would mean that while he was on the court, the Bucks were outscored by 24 points. He had 24. That's not very good. The math doesn't work to play winning basketball if your best player on the court is on the court for a plus minus of minus 24 in the points department. Bucks are home with Orlando. Orlando is among the three that come in still on this homestand. They're home with Utah on Saturday. And it will tell you what you need to know. Utah is 18-44. So if the Bucks can't find their mojo against Utah, then all the dirt is on the grave. Just shovel it all on there. Move it back on. If they can't beat Utah on Saturday, you can put a nail in it. It would be, I think it's done already, but you could do that. Orlando and Phoenix are also on the homestand before the Bucks go away. But again, 5 games back with 21 to play. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying in. I thought last night, if they win last night and get within 3, I could buy in. That was a 2-loss game. You went from 4 back to 5 back, could have gone to 3 back. That's a 2-game split, 2-game miss, and it's significant on that front. A little bit later on in the show, we'll talk with Vinnie Iannuccilli. He will join us. The Brewers are playing on the road in Cactus League play today. I watched their game last night. Wow, I watched a lot last night. Badger game, Bucks game, Brewers Cubs. I didn't watch it during the day. I watched it last night when it was all done on MLB.tv. So Christian Yelich, pretty good return. I think he walked in his first at bat, homered in his second at bat, had a hit later on. Dude can still rake it. So we'll see where that goes. It'll be fun to talk to Vinny. There's so many things to touch base on with the Brewers. Some not good news on Quinn Priester. Don't know. We'll get into some details on that. Brandon Woodruff. I think Brandon Woodruff is going to be fine, but I don't think he'll take the ball on opening day. I think that's going to be Miz. I think Woody will be just a week or 2 late to the rotation. I think second time through for Brandon Woodruff to get his debut going. And then also I want to tell you, those of you who are tuned in, or if you're listening on wherever you get your podcasts, the show is live from 2 until 3. Next week it'll move to 10 a.m. But if you are on the live stream on YouTube or on X Live, Twitter, you can send in your comments and we'll get to those. Ben Bano is here. Hi, Ben Bano.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
He is the man in charge. He is the lead of everything we're doing that you don't see. And he will, whatever you send in, if you want to communicate with the show, Ben's mic is on. He will tell me what you're saying.
Speaking of which, Van Smack thinks that Phoenix is still paying Bud, or paying Bud rather.
Phoenix and not Milwaukee?
That's what he's saying.
That might be the case because I don't know how all the buyouts work. Once you take another job, if you're still paid by the team that because you're working for somebody else, could be the deal, but he's not there anymore either. So maybe he's triple dipping. Maybe you're getting paid by everybody that used to pay him. It doesn't matter. If I were going back to the original point of that, I would make a move. If I'm the Bucks, desperate times, desperate measures. I don't think Doc's your coach next year anyway, is he? You're my NBA guy in studio. This is not. I've said this for years, as long as I've been doing the show. I have NBA opinions, and I pay attention to the Bucks when I think they're attention worthy. I think they're less than attention worthy right now, but I would be of the mindset that Doc Rivers isn't the Milwaukee Bucks head coach in the 26-27 season.
No way.
So why is he your head coach for the final 21 games now? If you're desperate and need to make a move, wouldn't Darvin Ham be your guy?
Maybe there's some Giannis affiliation there. He's going to the Hall of Fame pretty soon.
Yeah.
Hey, Bud would still be my coach. That's me though.
That's a fair way to look at it. So if you're, and the original point was, if you want to communicate with the show and you're watching live on Twitter or on our YouTube channel, just send in a message there. Ben will see it. He'll forward it like he did to, who was that? Big Smack?
Van Smack 4972.
Van Smack 4972. Thanks for tuning in live. And if you're, on your devices, on wherever you get your podcasts, and it's not in the live window, just keep in mind that you can watch and or hear us live tomorrow, one more day at 2:00, and then beginning at 10 a.m. as we roll forward. So today's also kind of a fun day in another realm. So some of you know, some don't. I also work for a company called Badger Connect. Badger Connect is a content provider. It is outside the realm of the University of Wisconsin, but is directly tied to Wisconsin athletics. We are a content provider with Jesse Temple, who does fantastic work and is a brilliant writer who covers the programs, mainly Badger football, volleyball, men's and women's basketball, and hockey. I am also now with Badger Connect, and today is our first Badger Connect with Mike Heller podcast. And that was released earlier today. The debut episode is a sit-down interview with Luke and Amy Fickell that I went into their home a couple of weeks ago and had a conversation, and I want to give you just a little snippet of it here. You can go to badgerconnect.com for free and see the entire interview, but here's just a touch of my sit-down with Luke and Amy Fickell.
Into a wrestling, but basketball, we would put two hoops on either side of the pool, and it would be blood drawn. Like the kids are highly competitive, but he kind of like sit back and he likes it. And whereas I'm like, don't do that to them. Like there is definitely a balance. I have to add a soft, like, all right, that's enough, guys. Where he like wants to, oh yeah, let's see what he can get out of him and who's gonna give in first, who's soft, who's not soft. Like, it's real.
It is. But she gets the same way when it comes to things with me. I don't think you do it as much with your own kids like I do. But if it comes to me, like, we don't do a whole lot of competitive sports together.
Okay.
No.
The two of you.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not pickleball partners? Or?
No.
Oh no, like euchre, I can't. Like he cheats. He cheats, and it's just not even worth my sanity.
Because I win.
No, winners, no.
So like I said,
cheaters never win.
We kind of learned at a really young age in marriage that like maybe we're not fit to like play on a golf team together.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool. It was fun to be able to have a conversation with them that was less directed at the transfer portal, NIL dollars, wins and losses. We all understand, and they understand it better than all of us, that winning is what will matter. But I also thought it was my goal with the Badger Connect podcast weekly is to interview players with family, interview coaches and their spouses, and to kind of tell the backstory of what got them from where they were to where they are now and what makes Wisconsin sports so dynamic for many of us to understand the backstory. So that's the Badger Connect podcast. That video episode is available in its entirety beginning today at badgerconnect.com. It is a subscription-based site that you pay to be at, but my podcast that airs there every week is free. So, and that includes Luke and Amy Fickell. A couple of weeks from now, it will be Kelly and Kathy Sheffield. Next week, it will be a conversation I'm going to have early in the week with Nick Boyd. We'll do all of those as we roll forward. So each week you'll have that, and that's at the badgerconnect.com. Badger Connect podcast with Mike Heller that debuted earlier today. All right, I want to get you out to talking about Brewers, but before we do it, let's talk about our sponsors again quickly as we move into talking to Vinnie Iannuccilli, who is standing by. I Love Mondays is presented by M3 Insurance. So they help businesses and individuals manage risk, purchase insurance, and provide the right benefits to their employees. M3ins.com. And I said this earlier, if you're involved in business at the level that you're in charge or have a relationship in purchasing your business insurance or benefits to the employees, go to m3ins.com. Contact somebody at M3 Insurance. I appreciate their support, certainly, but I appreciate you supporting those who support us being here, and that's what M3 is part of as a presenting sponsor. Also presented by Neuroscience Group, excellence in brain, spine, and brain care and pain care. Choose Neuroscience Group in Northeast Wisconsin. In sports, you trust the right team. From diagnosis to recovery, Neuroscience Group brings together neurology, neurosurgery, pain management, and therapy all under one roof. Advanced care close to home. And that is neuroscience, neurosciencegroup.com. Also brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. This is for all the sports bettors. Head to Potawatomi Sportsbook in Milwaukee for an unmatched sports betting experience. It's got everything you need all day, every day to bet above the rest, and a great place to stay, hotel, restaurants, all of it. And I Love Mondays with Mike Heller is presented in part by Habish, & Rotier, 13 locations to ensure you get a hometown attorney who understands your life and the impacts of your injury and personally committed to your recovery. And we welcome in Vinnie Iannuccilli, and he is at Salt River Fields at Talking Stick, which is where the Rockies are going to entertain the Brewers today. So that's going on, and we talked to Vinnie Iannuccilli. By the way, Vinnie's time on the program is brought to you by Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. It's our sports book, and if it's not yours, it ought to be. I don't know what you're waiting for. So Vinnie's going to join us Thursdays throughout the year, and we begin now. So we welcome in Vinnie Iannuccilli. I am so much looking forward to this. I appreciate your trust in aligning and partnering with me on the I Love Mondays podcast, even though we're going to do this stuff on Thursdays because I Love Mondays is a Monday through Friday deal. You're going to jump in on Thursdays. We might have to move from time to time based on a matinee going on in the regular season. But let me start with thank you for trusting me and for being part of what we're going to do.
Mike, this is an honor. I mean, truly, the best radio voice in all of Wisconsin, the best sports talk radio voice. And this is now a podcast that you're heading and leading. And I'm just so excited. I'm honored to be part of it, truly. And I cannot wait for Thursdays because I'm going to be able to jump on here and do what I do best and do what I love to do is talk Milwaukee Brewers baseball. And I can't wait to get going. Thanks for having me on, of course. And here we go. Episode 1 with Mike Heller on I Love Mondays. Can't wait.
One of the reasons why this partnership was something that we talked about at Fantasy Camp and prior and after is because I love your passion for the game and your knowledge of it. You come from a playing background, growing up in Racine and then playing at UW Lacrosse and finding your way from anonymity all the way to the major leagues and making your debut with the Brewers. But I've had you in at the Madison Dugout Club, the winter banquet, on a couple of occasions, and I was so impressed by your passion for what it is that you do as it relates to baseball. And shoot, if you take it back to the playing days, if you don't have that passion, you're not a player. Like, you wouldn't have gotten where you got to if it wasn't for passion. Because although you're very talented, you knew that if you didn't have the passion, that you weren't going to get where you wanted to get.
You could even take that a step further and call it an obsession, Mike. Really, I mean, about the game of baseball. I love it that much. And, I do think that it comes across in how I think about the game. I do think it comes across in how I'm interested in learning about the game. I'm forever learning. Kurt Hogue was in the clubhouse and he's constantly talking. We're talking to each other all the time, and he's the writer for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. He's on the beat all the time with the Brewers, and he's talking to me about how the fact that look, Vinny, you're asking questions here to players and you're still learning. And I just kind of took a step back and thought about it. It's like, I'm so interested in the game still. I'm 46 years old. I've been in the game professionally ever since 2003. I was lucky enough to get signed by the Milwaukee Brewers. I literally begged the scout to sign me at an open tryout, and he obliged. Cool. And he obliged, and he gave me an opportunity. I ran with it. I played professionally for 14 seasons, parts of 5 in the big leagues. I went to Japan and Korea and played. I scouted for the Texas Rangers after I got done playing, and now I'm doing this amazing dream come true gig on TV. Get to talk about the game, and it is. It's a passion. It's a love. It's an obsession, and I think it comes across to the audience. I believe that it's interesting to hear someone talk about the game who is so interested in the game. And that's kind of that's what BA taught me, Brian Anderson, trying to figure out this gig on the broadcast side of things. I'm like, kind of scared out of my mind to go on TV live. And he said, look, Vinny, once you get over that hump, it's a matter of, if you are interested, you will be interesting. And I thought, this is coming from BA, who's getting up in the Hall of Fame, telling me that it's just so poignant and so on the mark with how to come across as interesting and entertaining, hopefully, about the game. I just do. I love it that much. It really, truly is an obsession, Mike.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to having these conversations with you on Thursday. So let's start on what's going on now. I rewatched the game last night on MLB.tv, the app that for Brewers fans, you're going to have Brewers games on cable, but you can also download the app if you're remotely, and you'll pay for that, but it's affordable. No, that's subjective, but I think it's affordable. And so I'm watching last night, and I want to touch on a couple of things. The biggest change that people are going to see this year is the Challenge ABS system that's in play. Spring training games are not going to be a great barometer for that, but it is a learning tool for those like Gary Sanchez, who was catching yesterday against the Cubs, and he's tapping the helmet in the first inning to challenge a ball strike call. He got the first one correct, the second one incorrect, and you and Rock were quick to point out they're not doing this in the first inning of games rolling forward. They're doing it now so they can learn how the system works.
Learn how the system works, Mike, but also think about it. Learn where the strike zone is. I mean, for the first time in history, the history of Major League Baseball, there is a defined strike zone with borders. It's floating there in space, right? And it's it's invisible to the player, but they have to learn where those borders are for each hitter. Each hitter is different. Some are taller, some are shorter. It's 53.5% of the player's height. Now, I know that's a little obscure to think about, but they take a player's height, they measure 53.5%. That is where the zone is going to be in space for that particular player, and then 22% of their height is the bottom of the zone.
Let me interject something quick just to get a clarification. So Sal Frelick was talking about this at the beginning, at the onset of spring training. I watched him do an MLB Network interview, and he said that was the day that they were going to get measured. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know if the measurement was standing straight up or if it was in the stance. And I assume, and you can help me on this, that it's a measurement of their actual height, not how they're standing in the box.
That is 100% correct. Yes, they measure the players. And in fact, they got it down to such a science to make it super precise and fair to everybody that they actually had a time of day that they had to measure these players between 10 and noon, right? Because you start off the day a little bit taller coming out of bed, believe it or not, and then you shrink a little bit. Gravity makes you shrink over the course of the day. So the players are measured between 10 and noon. And yeah, it is their full height standing up with shoes off. And that's how they measured each player. And so now again, it gives, I think that is going to be the biggest learning curve for the players. Where is the strike zone exactly? Where is it defined? And I think as a player, that strike on the upper part of the zone, way on the corner, up and away, that forever has not been called a strike. And all of a sudden, those pitches are going to be called a strike just because umpires, believe it or not, the zone was kind of an oval over the course of history. They've measured and tracked where the pitches were called strikes by umpires, by human umpires. And now it's going to be more of a rectangle. And I think that is going to be the biggest learning curve. And I think that's why Pat Murphy's given the guys some free rein early on in camp as to, have some free rein and challenge the first pitch of the game if you want. But I do think there's going to be a strategy to this thing. In fact, I know the analytics department has already, around baseball, every analytics department has already identified which pitches are more valuable to challenge. If it's a 3-2 count, and it's a borderline strike, you can take more risks on that count because think about it. It flips the at-bat. From an out, let's say it's a called strike, and then you challenge it. It's now overturned and called a ball. You went from having an out to having a runner on base with a walk and one less out in the inning. That changes the complexion of the inning completely. And so you're going to want to challenge those more. And I'm guessing that's what Pat Murphy pulls back the reins a little bit on this and tries to implement those kinds of strategies, runners on base, later in the game type of situations. You definitely want to at least save one challenge for later in the game type of situation. So I think that's what they're going to do going forward. I would imagine it's a few more days of allowing the players to have a little bit of free reign right now.
And you only get 2. So
two.
When I say you only get 2, you keep them if you're correct, but you lose them if you're incorrect. So you don't want, it's like Gary Sanchez challenging in the first, because Gary Sanchez wasn't going to be behind the plate yesterday in the 8th and 9th innings. So I'm sure that Murph says, okay, treat it like it's later in the game, leverage moments, so you get to learn how this works. But the manager, the pitcher is not going to have the wherewithal to challenge, right? On almost all occasions, it's going to be the catcher or the hitter. And just like a green light on the base paths, managers are going to not give certain hitters green lights. You don't want, even those who are great at it, you don't want them challenging an 0-2 with 2 outs and nobody on in the second inning that's called for strike 3 and the hitter goes, no, strike, and challenge. And, that's not a leverage situation, right, Vinny? Right. So this has been used in AAA on the weekends over the last couple of years. I believe it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or half the games in a week. So some of these guys have never seen it. Other guys have already seen this before.
Right, exactly. And I think there's going to be a little bit of an advantage, certainly early on in the season, for players that were in AAA last year and kind of know where the defined strike zone is, and then also know the strategy. And also, like you said, Mike, it's a really good point about not getting too emotional in an at-bat. I mean, certainly you're going to want to take it away from pitchers because, look, they think everything's a strike, and they do get emotional about, balls and strikes all the time. But, a little more level head behind the plate with a catcher who can also is squared up to the pitch, remember. So, and their head's not moving typically when they are receiving a pitch, whereas a pitcher, that is a full-out anaerobic movement to pitch a baseball, and it is in the air for a fraction of a second. In fact, 0.4 seconds for a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. And so they're not going to be able to determine a quarter of an inch. I mean, you see how – if you guys have been watching these games, you see how close these misses are, right? I mean, we're talking, a tenth of an inch. And so, and so you're not going to want pitchers to really, because they don't have the vantage point. But then also, it is going to be difficult, I would imagine, for hitters and catchers in an emotional situation, a big situation of a game, even if it's an early situation in the game, maybe 4th, 5th inning, and the pitcher, you're trying to get him through that second time through the order. You're trying to keep the game close. And, you're trying to get that punch out if you're a catcher, and you got to take the emotion out of it. That is going to be something that they're going to have to learn how to do because these guys are such competitors. And now you're bringing this technology into the game. It is a change. It's going to be a mind shift change for these guys for sure.
Let's talk about what you've learned so far being down there. You had the call yesterday with the Brewers and the Cubs, and we saw Brandon Sproat and Logan Henderson and Shane Drowan, who is one of the pitchers, one of the returns on the Caleb Durbin deal. So let's start from the top. Sproat has and Rock and you were talking about it yesterday in the first inning. His breaking ball is a midnight to 6 a.m. breaking ball. It's a hammer. What have you seen on his stuff and how it translates?
Nasty. I mean, this kid is nasty. Chris Hook talks about this kid and his face lights up. I mean, you're talking about a player who has the potential to be on the same level as a Brandon Woodruff, as a Corbin Burns, as a Freddie Peralta. Remember 2018 when those guys made their introduction onto the scene in this Brewers pitching staff. That's the kind of talent that this kid has. And look, there was a lot of work that had to be done with all 3 of those guys in terms of their delivery, in terms of their stuff. This kid, he's not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but there's not that much that has to be done to his delivery. There's not that much that has to be done to his stuff. It's already it's not, like I said, not a finished product quite yet. There's some tweaks that Chris Hook and Jim Henderson are going to have to work with this kid in order to make, but he is well on his way to being one of those top of the rotation type of arms that the Brewers have just had a plethora of. And that is going to be a big thing for this team. Now, his sinker is quite nasty. I mean, we saw it up to 100 miles per hour in his first outing in spring training. I'm sure the adrenaline was moving pretty good through his veins. But now it was 95, 97. You see it every once in a while. If it's left up, like anybody, it gets flat and it gets hit. We saw that a couple times yesterday against that Cubs lineup. Got hit a little bit. But he's got 2 different breaking balls. The sweepers is really good. It really pairs well with the sinker. And then, like you said, Mike, that hammer curveball that he's got to go with it, he's going to have to throw that I think, more to left-handed hitters and learn how to backdoor it. That's the thing that Chris Hook is so good at getting these guys to do. To get them to be able to throw their entire arsenal to both sides of the plate. We saw that with Quinn Priester. We even saw that with guys like Adrian Hauser over the years, right? So Chris Hook can really tap into that part of his repertoire and his arsenal. Got a good changeup too. He's got confidence in it. So this kid is the ceiling super high on Sproat, and he's going to be a big part. I think even with, and I know we're going to get into it, even if, let's say, Brandon Woodruff and Quinn Priester are delayed a little bit in starting the season, but let's say they weren't. I think Brandon Sproat's already the guy they had pegged for that number 5. You know, the way I would line it up right now would be a Woodruff. It would be Woodruff, Priester, Miz, Chad Patrick, and then I think it would be Sproat with all the other guys battling for that 5th spot. But now, you know, I know we're going to get into it, but, you know, potentially they might need a couple other arms if those guys are delayed a little bit.
Everybody's right-handed too. From a starting pitching perspective, all the names we're going to talk about. I want to get to Priester and Woodruff in a moment, but let's talk about the other two that threw yesterday. Logan Henderson, when he was up with the Brewers last year, I mean, he was one of those guys where you're looking at and go, okay, we're good. He threw again yesterday. You didn't mention him in that grouping, but he might very well play himself there. And then Shane Drowan touched a little bit on each of those.
So Logan Henderson last year made 5 starts in the big leagues, 25 1/3 innings. He had an ERA under 2, 1.78. I mean, he just comes up as a 2-pitch mix, essentially. It's a fastball that's deceptive, top rail. He throws it. Guys can't hit it. They swing underneath it. Super deceptive. And then the changeup, it's filthy, right? So it's almost like a Devin Williams type of a changeup. I mean, really, it has that much movement on it. It's not quite at that level, but it is really, really good. And he was getting away with everything with those 2 pitches. He got hurt at the end of the year. The Brewers have big plans for this kid. They're trying to add that 3rd pitch. He did mix in, you know, a cutter, a slider, and he's got a 12-6 curveball as well. It's useful enough. And again, it is an opportunity to implement that pitch, that breaking ball, to those right-handed batters. He actually has a really good success rate against left-handed hitters because that changeup's moving away from him so far. So he is a guy that, again, they're going to have to take it slow with him and be careful with him again because he does have a track record of being hurt. He had a flexor strain the last 2 months of the season last year as well. And then the other guy that you mentioned and who was really, really impressive, I know Murph is super high on this kid. I talked to him in the clubhouse yesterday, Shane Drowan. He came over in that Caleb Durbin deal, as you mentioned. It was Kyle Harrison, Shane Drowan, and David Hamilton. And then also they gave up a comp pick, so a draft pick as well. So they gave up a lot, right? But they wanted this kid to be in the deal for sure. I mean, it's 95 from the left side. Like you said, they don't have any left-handers right now currently. If you mapped it out, maybe Harrison makes the team. But this kid's making a case to make the team, especially with his performance yesterday. He was filthy. I know it was against like the B team, essentially, of the Cubs roster. But, I mean, his minor league numbers were off the charts. I mean, he's going to be able to get big leaguers out both sides. He's got confidence in his entire arsenal to both-handed hitters. That's what was impressive to me. I asked him, I said, so what do you throw against lefties versus righties? He said, I throw everything to both. And he wants it that way because, you know, he doesn't want to be predictable. And he's got the full arsenal. He's a good one. And again, all these guys have a lot of years of control. And this is what the Brewers do. They just continue that roster churn and make sure that they have a bunch of guys ready to contribute for a number of years coming forward.
So in that deal, and you mentioned David Hamilton, and Pat Murphy glows a little bit when he talks about David Hamilton. Give us your scouting report on who he is and what he might be, because Murph's talking about him right now the way he's talked about Bryce Terang a couple of years ago or Sal Frelick, guys who are ready to take that step. He believes that Hamilton's one of those guys.
The quantum leap guy. That's what he pegged Bryce Terang a couple of years ago. And he was right. All of a sudden, Bryce Terang is balling out now for Team USA and the WBC in these exhibition games. And so, yeah, David Hamilton, first thing that stands out about him is, I mean, the athlete. He's a plus runner. His run speeds are some of the top end speeds in all of baseball. Left-handed hitter that controls the strike zone. He's strong. right? So this is a live body kid. So athletic with that live body, that twitch, that strength in his hands, that he can drive a ball out of the ballpark with the best of them. In 2024, when he made on the scene with the Red Sox, 17 doubles and eight bombs and only 294 plate appearances, right? So, I mean, he can juice the ball, certainly to the pull side, but it's a guy that controls the zone, gets on base, and he can steal a base, right, and play great defense. So this is a Brewers guy through and through. If you don't check those boxes between running the bases well, being able to get a bunt down, and play great defense and versatility, he's got that in his back pocket too. He kind of checks all those boxes. 57 stolen bases in his big league career so far. Only he's caught 11 times. So Murph is going to have fun kind of utilizing this Swiss Army knife. I think he's probably going to play and have a shot to win that third base job. He and Luis Rengifo, my guess, is probably going to split time to start the year for a little bit and then see who emerges. But even if Luis Rengifo wins that job, you still have David Hamilton being able to play short in case Joey Ortiz needs a day or isn't hitting. He can give Bryce Terang a day off. He can get out to the outfield. So there's a lot of different things and ways that you can deploy David Hamilton. And he's one of those guys. He almost reminds you of, remember Jace Peterson? He's kind of that, but even a little more talented than him.
Yeah, get on base, Jace. Let me. You and I haven't visited since the trade. Your honest view of the trade that sent Caleb Durbin, and to send Caleb Durbin, you had to really like what you're getting back. And there's a lot of layers to this conversation, but Durbin was a great fit in Milwaukee. So the trade is a bit of a shell shock when it happens in the moment. What's your view on it as we sit now?
Yeah, so Caleb Durbin, remember last year, Brewers didn't really know who they were going to play at third base. I was watching Caleb Durbin in spring training. I'm like, this is the return for Devin Williams. Like, I'm not sure he can play third. Although, he could steal a base. It looked like he, could get on base, not strike out. But I was like, I'm not sure about this third base. Matty Erickson turned him into not only a capable third baseman in the big leagues, but he was above average.
Plus.
Yeah, he was plus. I agree. Like, he was making every play. He had it between the ears. At the same time, I think, and I'm rooting for Caleb Durbin, like one of my favorite players. Really, I mean, he played Division III baseball. Yes. I have a lot of commonalities with Caleb Durbin, and he is going to stick in the big leagues for a long time. I just think that the Brewers, for the return that they got, the value that they got back for Caleb Durbin, they got one of the top, Kyle Harrison was a top 100 prospect as recent as 2 years ago. I mean, this guy's got a great left-handed arm with a great fastball. They got back Shane Drowan. Again, you just talked about him, how much the pitching staff and Murph loves this guy. And then they got David Hamilton, who's probably let's just say, let's live in a world where maybe he gives back 80% of the value of what Caleb Durbin is able to do. Well, you just got basically 80% of Caleb Durbin and then two arms that are going to be in your rotation for the next 6 years. The value that they got back for Caleb Durbin, you just had to make the deal. It was shocking. It was kind of bizarre at the time, right? Like, what? This is Murphy's guy, and they got rid of him. But at the same time, when you saw the return, and now we're watching the return in real time, live here in spring training, like, you understand why they did it. But yeah, they're gonna miss him. They're gonna miss his presence in the clubhouse. But at the same time, what they got back, they needed to do it, especially with Brandon Woodruff, being the only guy with experience right now on this big league rotation.
Is that the signal that is that your 10-minute warning before you got to go?
No, it was Jeff Cirillo calling me. I don't know why he's calling me right now.
Come on.
So I'll call him back. Right. I need to. I will.
Willow and I got to be close friends at fantasy camp.
That's right. Yeah, I need to. My first inaugural show. I don't know why my ringer's on. Sorry, buddy.
You're
Sorry,
good.
Mike.
I also wanted to bring up when we're talking about that trade, I think people have to be cognizant of Andrew Fisher and Luis Lara and Cooper Pratt and Jesus Made, because they're all infielders and they're all next, right? So that gave them the organization and Matt Arnold not only the luxury, but the opportunity to go out and make themselves stronger in other areas by dealing from a position of strength because of who is on the come in the coming year and couple of years for the Brewers.
It's a phenomenal point. Don't forget about Jet Williams too, who came back in the
Correct.
in the deal for Freddie Peralta. I mean, he was the Mets' number 3 overall prospect. This kid can play. He can play multiple different positions, play short, play third, center field, even can really run, can hit. Short, little 5'7", again, Murphy's type of guy. So, Yep, I 100% agree. That was in the calculus. In fact, Matt Arnold even said as much, that was in their processing and their logic behind, trading Caleb Durbin, that they had guys coming, they have guys internally coming, and the fact that they're so good at turning these prospects into real everyday major league type players is something that not every organization can do, really. I mean, I've been part of the Texas Rangers front office, right, as a pro scout, and kind of noticed the other organizations around the league, and I'm still noticing the ones that are really good at turning around their prospects and making them big leaguers, and the ones that aren't. The Brewers are near the top of the list. I mean, they certainly are. And players know that they're going to get that opportunity here with the Milwaukee Brewers. If you're in the Yankees or the Dodgers system, do you really have much hope, that they're going to give you a long leash to fail at the big league level and figure it out? The Brewers do that better than anybody in all of baseball. And how valuable is that? And then these guys are hungry because of it. These kids that are in the minor leagues, that's what they are. You mentioned Jesus Mate, 18 years old here in big league camp. He doesn't play like a kid, doesn't look like a kid certainly, but he's still a kid, and he knows that he's got just a real shot to be an all-star type caliber player at the big league level, and the Brewers are going to give him that leash to do it. It's going to be maybe a year away from that for him, but he knows it, and that's why they get so much out of these guys, because they know that's their opportunity, and they're so good at making these guys and reaching their ceiling. And so that was definitely part of the calculus in trading Caleb Durbin.
Vinny, let me ask you about center field. If we had a 10-game, just a sample 10-game run middle of April in center field, how do you think that position gets split up and with who?
Well, they have all kinds of depth in center field. In fact, I had to write down all the names the other day because I'm thinking, of my goodness, this guy can play center. This guy can play center. But I think if you're talking, you're asking me, later on in the season, who is it going to be? I think Garrett Mitchell actually has the upper hand to make the team and start in center field for this team right now. I mean, we've seen him perform.
Yeah.
We've seen him perform. He just has to stay healthy. So if you're asking me to predict whether or not he's going to stay healthy, I mean, I'm rooting for the kid. I mean, what a grind, what a mental, that'll make a lot of players. What he went through last year, coming back from the oblique and then tearing his shoulder and then having to have surgery again. He already went through it. So it's 2 years of the same injury that he missed. I mean, that'll do a lot of players in psychologically. They'd be done with the game. I mean, it's so frustrating, but he's stuck with it. He looks really, really good. Looks like he hasn't missed a beat. So if he can stay healthy, I think he's the center fielder. I think Blake Perkins, just the way that he can play defense. I mean, he's going to be a guy that's he's going to record a lot of big outs for the Brewers in center field for this pitching staff. But otherwise, look, you have Brandon Lockridge. He's all of a sudden making some adjustments and trying to stay behind the ball a little bit more and driving some balls. He had a ball 114 off the bat the other day for a homer. So let's see if he can tap into that power. I don't know if he makes a team out of spring, but he's going to be a guy that is going to serve as depth. But think you have Frelick that can still play center. Jackson Churio can still play center. Got this kid, Akil Baddoo, coming over. He's on the 40-man roster. He looks solid, and he looks like he can go get it in center. Greg Jones, he'll be in the minor leagues, but he can serve as depth. And then Luis Lara, who won the Gold Glove out in center field in the minor league. So they have a number of guys that can go get it. But if you ask me, just to put a finger on who's going to be that guy, I'm rooting for Garrett Mitchell. I really am. And, he's got a potential to not only play great defense out in center, but also hit. I mean, the kid's got, some sock in that bat.
Vinny, when we talk about those young guys, the Luis Lara, the Cooper Pratt, the Jesus Mades, Andrew Fisher, any of those guys, probably not Fisher, any of the aforementioned three, any chance that they get at bats at the big league level this year, or are we still looking at 2027 if we're playing baseball in 2027? Or are we looking beyond?
Oh man, I hope so. Yeah, no, so I do think Made is how you pronounce the name now, is going to be a guy that's at least a year away still. I don't think he's going to get at bats this year. And plus they're afforded to be patient with him as well. So they can give him a bunch more at bats and more time in the field to figure it out. But he's going to be a good one. Pena, same thing. Luis Pena. I think Cooper Pratt has a real shot to play this year, especially if something were to happen to Joey Ortiz, which I'm hoping not. I'm a Joey Ortiz believer. I know that a lot of people are kind of frustrated with his offense and his lack thereof, but he had a solid second half of the season. He hit around like 268 or something the second half of the season, last few months of the season. So not a lot of pop, but I'm a Joey Ortiz believer. But if something were to happen, maybe an injury, this kid, Cooper Pratt, 21 years old, he can pick it at short. I mean, it is fun to watch. And you wouldn't really necessarily think it. You watch the kid walk around, and is not a real imposing presence. And he kind of doesn't necessarily look like a great athlete, but he is. I mean, he really moves well in short spaces. He can run a little bit, but I mean, there's range there. There's instincts there. Reminds me a lot of JJ Hardy, to be quite honest, because JJ didn't have a ton of range, but the instincts were off the charts. The throws every single time are right there, chest high, throws seeds across the infield. Love Cooper Pratt. This kid is going to be a player. I think he's actually going to hit too. So if you had to peg me for who is going to be the shortstop of the future for the Milwaukee Brewers, naming, and having me pick between Made, Pena, and Pratt, I think it's going to be Cooper Pratt. I really do. And even Jet Williams, right? I do think Cooper Pratt in 3 years, we're going to see he's going to be pegged into that lineup, penciled into that lineup every single day and playing short, playing great defense and hitting. I think this kid's going to be a player.
In the few minutes that we have with you, we talked earlier about Woodruff and Priester. Priester now appears to be more of a question mark because they haven't figured out the wrist issue. There are some days when it's fine and he plays through it or can throw through it, and then other days where it's not. And I think it sounded from Pat Murphy like that is a concern that they don't have answers for yet.
Yep, that one's concerning to me. The Quinn Priester one, it sounds like Woodruff, in talking, just to people and being around the team here the last few days this week, it sounds like Woodruff is just a slower buildup and it's a slower ramp up. And how much are they going to need him? They're going to need him this year, right? So they want to make sure that he's healthy and he can go the full slate. And hopefully they're just kind of handling him with kid gloves. The Priester one's a little bit concerning just because of the fact, Mike, that this kid took the ball for 18 games in a row and the Brewers won every single game when he was on the mound. It was an easy, almost, mentally or psychologically for the players playing behind him. I know exactly how they were feeling when Quinn Priester took the mound. They were thinking, okay, 1, we're going to win. 2, this is going to be a nice, quick, easy, fast-paced game that we can get into. It's certainly not a day off, but it almost feels like it after a game like that. And you need those guys on the mound. You need those guys in your rotation. Hopefully that wrist thing that they mentioned, he was dealing with it a little bit last year at the end of last year. Hopefully it's nothing. They're just being super precautious with it. And again, remember, he threw the most innings he's ever thrown last year.
Yeah.
And remember, he pitched all the way, 20 games. And that Murph talks about all the time. This team was on their feet at the ballpark 20 extra days late into October last year, longer than they've ever played baseball before in their lives. And so, hopefully they're just kind of factoring that in with his slow ramp up as well. And who cares, right? If he misses, let's say, 10 days at the beginning of the season, but then has a healthy rest of his 2026. Honestly, who cares? And hopefully that's the case for Quinn Priester.
Let me give you 2 final thoughts on the way out. One, the Brewers breakout roster. That's their young guys that they have this breakout now at spring training, which is fantastic. That roster includes Jesus Made, Luis Pena, Cooper Pratt, Jet Williams, Andrew Fisher, Jefferson Caro, Bishop Letson, Marco Dinges, Josh I'm not even going to try his last name. Adam
Shevsky. Yeah, Indiana kid. He can hit. Yeah.
Luis Lara and Luke Adams. I mean, holy cow! That's why the Brewers farm system, their minor league system, is essentially ranked number 1 in baseball. That is a lineup right there.
It is, and I love. Okay, so a lot of people are thinking, well, you have all these prospects and coveted prospects around baseball. So why don't you flip them for, take your pick? Yeah. And the answer is because, again, I go back to how good this team is and this organization is at developing these players and allowing them to play and flourish at the big league level. Now, if you keep a Jesus Madej and all of a sudden, and you don't trade him, and all of a sudden he's the next coming of Ronald Acuna Jr.,
sure,
that is a player that can win you a World Series, right? Yeah. And so that's why you keep those guys and you build around them. So I know I'm with you, Mike. This is such an exciting time to be a Brewers fan. It really is. And I love the approach. I do. I don't love the idea of pushing all the chips in. This approach is going to win them a World Series. I strongly believe that at some point, and it's going to keep them competitive for the next decade and then beyond, hopefully. So that's what I love about this team. Yeah.
Looks really good. And the World Baseball Classic is fun. And I got one prediction on the way out the door, and that is, and you don't have to do this because you shouldn't and you can't. But if I were going to Potawatomi Sportsbook right now and betting the futures for NL MVP, I would put Bryce Terang in the conversation to be the best player and the MVP of the National League now. I think he's going to win one, but he could win it now. That's how much I like who he is and how he keeps taking the steps forward.
Mike, he hit, I think I tweeted this out, 12 homers in his last 56 games played. Yeah. His first 396 games played in the big leagues, he hit 19 total homers. So 10 in August, it's in there. I mean, this kid it's in there to have that pop. He is, I scouted him way back in 2019, and I watched this kid play he was in Appleton's. I drove up there. It is so much fun. It was so much fun to watch him play, and I put a big number on him, and I told the Rangers to acquire him. Now, I'm not saying that they had an opportunity to do so, and I know the Brewers have coveted him, but to watch him, and it took a while for him to get where he's at. It is it's something special. This kid has that mindset, and I'm with you. He could win an MVP, and he could take that next step and be that. Yeah, he's already a leader. Yeah. But he could be that next leadership piece for the Brewers. I wonder, and I'm just curious if they're talking extension. I don't know, but that would be a guy that you would think they would want to lock up.
100%. Vinnie Iannuccilli, go do your work. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here. We'll look forward to Thursdays, brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino. Bet above the rest. Enjoy the rest of the day, and look forward to visiting with you again next week.
Love it. Can't wait to do this all year, Mike. Thanks.
How good is that? Getting a chance to visit with Vinnie Iannuccilli, Brewers at Talking Stick today. By the way, today, 21 days, 3 weeks until I think the Miz takes the ball in the top of the first inning at American Family Field against the White Sox in a game that counts. 3 weeks from today is the Brewers season and home opening game at American Family Field in Milwaukee. American Family Fields is the spring training site. But again, Vinnie Iannuccilli, brought to you by Potawatomi Sportsbook and Casino every Thursday on the show. Very much looking forward to our visits with him throughout. All right, running out of time. 3 tops and a bottom on this Thursday afternoon. Let me begin with my number 3 and the 3 tops. Things that might not be front and center, but 3 things that caught my eye a little bit. Professional Women's Hockey League. They talked about it a lot during the Olympics, that the U.S. now has a Professional Women's Hockey League. On April 4th, a game between the New York Sirens and Seattle Torrent has sold out, coming up a month from now, at Madison Square Garden in New York, with the crowd expected to set the U.S. attendance record for a professional women's hockey game. The current number was set February 27th at Seattle's Climate Pledge Arena, 17,335 watched. The capacity for hockey at MSG is 18,006. They got a sellout. Looking forward to I don't know that I'll watch it, but I think that's good news. I love it when those things happen. Number 2 on my 3 tops. The Buffalo Bills landed a new top target for Josh Allen, agreeing to a trade with the Chicago Bears to acquire wide receiver DJ Moore. Now, the Bears are trading him because DJ Moore was due to make a ton of money. A ton of money. The Bears will still pay some of it in the trade with the Buffalo Bills. Sources tell ESPN's Adam Schefter on Thursday, Buffalo is sending a 2026 second-round draft pick to Chicago in exchange for Moore and a 2026 fifth-round selection, sources told Schefter. The Bills will guaranteeing $15.5 million of Moore's $23.5 million base salary in 2028. Agent is Drew Rosenhaus, and Robert Bailey told Schefter Moore's $23.5 million base salary in 2026 fully guaranteed. 2027 base salary also $23.5 million becomes fully guaranteed. That's my number 2. Anytime the Bears lose a weapon, I'm good with that. Number 1, Isaac Gard. Here's a couple of stats for you before we take in his moment last night. Isaac Gard has played in 38 career games at Wisconsin. Last night, he scored his 14th point on a 3 that you're going to hear in a moment. The 38 games that Isaac Gard has played in, hey, head coach Greg Gard, pay attention here. You're 38-0 in games that Isaac Gard plays in. Get the man on the court. Get him on the court. 14 career points. The last 3 came on senior night on Wednesday night at the Kohl Center. It sounded and looked something like this.
Gard logo 3 left side. Got it! Isaac Gard with a logo 3 on senior night. Isaac hit his 3. He'll come out, then he'll wave to the crowd as his dad waits for him.
How about that? The emotion and the joy on head coach Greg Gard and his son Isaac hitting a 3. Hollywood script ending to that. I got a bottom. The bottom is about Cleveland Browns defensive end Myles Garrett, the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, was issued a citation for speeding recently after going 94 miles an hour in a 70 mile per hour zone on the interstate in Northeast Ohio last month, according to court records. It is Garrett's 9th speeding ticket since he entered the league in 2017. You and I can't drive if we got 9 speeding tickets. So with power and money comes influence. I don't know how he's still driving. He was pulled over at 1:35 on February 21st. He was given a court date next Tuesday, but won't have to appear if he pays the fine. I don't know. Maybe he's got to GoFundMe to take care of that for him. So that's my bottom. What are you doing, Miles? What are you doing? 94 at 2:30? What, 1:35 in the morning? Nothing good happens after 1:30 in the morning. It's 5 minutes after that. All right. And one other note, tomorrow we're back in here normal time. This week, 2:00 is the live version, but you can get it anytime wherever you get your podcasts. Next Monday, we move to 10 a.m. Next Monday, we move to 10 a.m. And one other note, go to badgerconnect.com for my Badger Connect podcast with Mike Heller. It's an interview with Luke and Amy Fickell. It dropped today. It's free, and I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you will. And I hope you'll enjoy this and come back again and do it with us tomorrow. It is I Love Mondays, the podcast. We'll talk to you on Friday.
With Mike Heller.